Okay, welcome back to the Daily Carry podcast, cruising right along into episode 5 today. And we were kind of cut short a little bit on the last episode. We had to kind of rush off a little bit, and we were talking about a lot because there's a lot going on in this world today. And still a lot going on. In fact, since last episode, a lot has continued to happen in this world. We went from on that episode saying and talking about very briefly at the very end of the conversation that since the prior episode to that, we had had a peace treaty negotiated, and that peace treaty and ceasefire was breached, and that was literally that morning that we knew it was breached. Sounds like we are back to the ceasefire and peace, and hopefully it remains that way, but just shows you how quickly things are happening in this world, and the need to stay on your toes and stay prepared and make sure that we're walking in that daily carry that we've been talking about since episode 1.
Yep. So, real quick, I'm a boy, little, 8 years old. Back in the day, we had 3 channels, 2, 4, 7. And then where we were at in Detroit, we had UHF 50. And the only way you knew 50 years ago when I was a kid that something was happening is if you turned on 2, 4, or 7, or you read the morning paper on the event news that somebody else found about. So, point of reference, it is crazy cool to be in today's society to me, where you can turn on anything inside of 3 seconds and the entire world knows it. The entire world. I mean, to me, it's a weird perspective because I remember sitting in front of the TV with my grandfather, and we'd watch the world news every night with Walter Cronkite, who you probably have no idea who that is.
I'll be honest, I have no idea who that is.
Yeah. So that's a statement in and of itself. So everybody, don't beat up poor Jared for not knowing who the greatest news broadcaster of all time was. Yeah.
I apologize. Please,
that's
please
okay.
forgive me.
But it is weird
Greatest news
because
broadcaster.
we do have a lot of crazy world events, and I think it's a great subject to hit on today, and we have a myriad of things to talk about, but it is fascinating to me just how fast the world is turning. It's like Billy Joel's song, "We Didn't Start the Fire," and he just sits there and just names one event after another for 4.5 minutes. That's, to me, that's every day, right? I mean, it's like it just changes that fast. And I think it always did, but my point is you didn't know it back in the day. You had no idea. Unless you sat down and watched that, you had no idea what was going on. And now it's like you can't escape it.
That's a very good point. You are definitely right. The world's, it doesn't stop.
Nope.
Time doesn't stop.
Nope.
And thankfully we have resources that, they can definitely either be leveraged for good or evil, as everybody should know by now. But I am a proponent for X. That's usually where I get most of my information.
Yeah.
Because you can check multiple sources pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, just when we were talking about the Wayne County, Michigan church shooting in the last episode, that's really where I had gotten the majority of my information.
Right.
There was some pretty crazy conflicting stories in a lot of the mainstream media. And actually, even since the last episode, and continuing to read about it a little bit, I think we may have to clarify a couple of things. I don't know if you've looked into it a little more or not, but I think that I saw that it looks like that the suspect didn't actually ram his truck into the church building.
Somebody else rammed him.
It was somebody on the church team that saw him, I guess, in the parking lot with his tactical gear on, his guns. Sounds like maybe he had already opened fire by this point, and he ran him over with his F-150.
Yeah.
And part of the collateral damage there and trying to eliminate the threat was, I guess he must have kind of lost control of the vehicle a little bit and ran into the church building.
Yeah.
I think that's what it sounds like so far.
By tomorrow, it'll be a Chevy Silverado, and it won't be a church building. This was a law enforcement problem that we had all the time. And here's a little PSA for everybody who dials 911. The information that the dispatcher gets, just FYI, is what's given to them. So they can ask all the questions in the world, but I can tell you I'll just go back to routine street cop stuff back in the day. People in paralysis by analysis, they see what they want to see. They react to what they think they saw. and then they share information that they believe is the case. And the simplest example I could give you is, oh my gosh, he was 6'2", he was 212 pounds, and he was wearing a striped shirt. And then we catch the guy, he's 5'7", he's 150, and he's wearing a plaid shirt. Because you see what you want to see. And when events unfold in front of you, things are larger than life, and they're bigger, and they're worse than what you think. I can't begin to tell you the highest percentile of times we'd respond to something based on information that was coming through dispatch from a phone call. And at the end of the day, it was usually exaggerated or misconstrued tenfold. And that's in the cop world. That's why we say when you have three witnesses to a crime that don't know each other, so a robbery in progress or something, to where all three people tell the exact same story with the exact same matching description, that's usually a lock solid case, because those three people are independent and they have no overlapping knowledge of each other. So like family members in a domestic or something. I only bring that up because again, to the story in Michigan, a lot of reports came out on a lot of stuff. And this is why I typically wait to talk about a lot of this stuff in detail until I really know from a perspective standpoint, because people see what they want to see, or they hear what they want to hear, or reports get filed. And, we talked about that on a previous episode. Somebody throws something out and they've got 5 million followers. Well, if their information is wrong, now 5 million people think that information was correct when indeed it was not. And that's the scary part of today's technology.
Yeah, no doubt. And we'll always do our best to clarify, but I think we did a pretty decent job in the last episode to make sure that everyone knew it was just what we knew so far, and a lot of what we talked about was kind of speculative, and we were just kind of assuming what could have happened.
But we'll always own it.
But I have seen the photos of the F-150, so it was an F-150.
All right, so it's a Ford.
I've seen the photos of that, and then I did see a photo of the person who was driving the F-150. So I think it's pretty confirmed that it was somebody on the church's team driving the F-150 that used the F-150 to try to help stop the threat.
Yeah. And
then there was still a separate person outside of the F-150 that was on the security team that was the person who completely eliminated the threat. Yeah. It sounded like that the F-150 didn't get the job done.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise for any Ford fanboys out there. Have to drop that out there. Myself and Micah don't drive Fords, but don't beat us up too much about that. I don't care if you drive a Ford. That's cool. Whatever.
That's all right.
Found on road dead.
Yeah. Back when I grew up, it was called First on Race Day, and that changes from season to season, I guess, depending on your fan of your truck stuff. So let's.
I have to clarify.
Ahead.
I have to clarify because my first truck was actually a Ford.
There you go.
But it was a 1989 Ford F350. So one of those old Fords.
Yeah, I had a 61 ton that drove like a brick, single cab. Yeah, 4-wheel drive. Yeah, I mean, $1,000 guy gave it to me. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
Did you have 2 gas tanks in there?
I had 2 gas tanks. Yeah. I actually had 38 gallons of gas, but that was back when you could fill the truck up for $38. Yeah, a little different.
Yeah, two gas tanks. You think that's so cool until you realize, it's still only going to get you probably about 150 miles in one of those things.
Yeah, that thing had like 4 miles to the gallon on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, granny gear. It was a 4-speed, topped out at about 61 if I redlined it.
Wow.
Yeah.
61.
Yeah. Like, I mean, in third gear, you could comfortably drive 30 miles an hour. Yeah.
See, my issue was not necessarily that. It was a double cabin. It was a long bed, the F350. It's awesome. My grandpa still has it today. And it was his truck. He gave it to me for a period of time. I gave it back after I bought a different truck. And that truck, the biggest issue was it just burned oil. Literally almost every 2-3 days, I was having to fill it. More quarts of oil. I just had to keep quarts of oil in the cab and just be ready, because it would make this very specific sound whenever you would hear it starting to get low on oil, and you're like, got to pull over right away. Got to fill this thirsty boy up.
Yeah, a little lift or knock, a little rod. I'm actually glad that you said that, because I didn't know that about you. And for a lot of our younger people out there that are going to be listening, they don't know what motor oil is, much less that you have to put it in something. So I say that jokingly, but it is interesting. I mean, I grew up with points and condensers, by the way. Do you know what those are?
I don't know what those are.
Okay, yeah. So you added oil to your truck on a regular basis. Everybody who's 50 and above is laughing right now because they're like, oh, dude, points and condensers, yeah. That was part of your electronics of your vehicle underneath your cap and rotor, essentially, and your distributor. And if they were misaligned, your car would crank, but it would never fire. So points and condensers got replaced pretty often, along with cap rotor wires, distributor turns, retiming, and et cetera. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, whole different genre of vehicle life.
Yeah, well, we kind of deviated a little bit, but it's fun to talk about trucks. If we're being honest, I think me and you could both sit down and talk about just trucks if we wanted to.
Oh, dude, we'll have a podcast where we do nothing but talk about vehicles. We're not going to do that today, but yeah, I actually have some pretty cool vehicle stories. I'm a car guy through and through, for sure.
You and me both. I'm definitely more of a truck guy. My first vehicle was a truck, and I still drive a truck to this day. I've had a couple different cars between then and a couple of cars while owning trucks, but truck is essential.
Let me clarify. I'm a vehicle guy. So when I say cars, I just mean like I've kind of owned them all, everything from old school to new to, I had a 13 GT500 that we built with 4-liter Whipple, rod lowered, cranked, everything just forged, 1,000 horsepower, 11-second car here at altitude in a Tremec 6-speed. I mean, it was epically awesome to drive. Scary as all get out, but it was a ton of fun. So yeah, we'll sit down and have a car conversation someday. We gotta talk about what we gotta talk about today, but I get giddy when I start talking about vehicles.
Good point. But I do think that if we're really thinking about it from all angles here, I think a truck is definitely a part of that everyday carry that we are talking about.
It's a good point,
on a
actually.
regular basis. You just can't, in my opinion, you can't get around it.
Yeah.
The utility that you get from buying a truck and from having a truck as your daily driver.
It's true.
It's just, I don't know. I feel like, thankfully, there's as many trucks on the road as there are.
Yeah.
But I feel like that the world could always use a couple more trucks on the road.
I'm with you. I mean, they're diverse. I use we live in 4 seasons out here in Colorado, sometimes in one day. So you can wake up and literally, for people not from Colorado, they say we have 300 and some sunny days a year. I think we actually start with like 350, truthfully. By the end of the day, though, you could see sun, you could see rain, you could see snow, and you could see sun in the afternoon. And you could start in the morning wearing a light jacket, go to shorts, be in a parka by the afternoon, and then back to shorts by late afternoon. It's pretty crazy.
It's true, though.
But it's true. It happens all the time.
Yep. Colorado for you.
Yeah.
You get it all. And drive some people crazy, but honestly,
I love it.
I love it as well.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine really. This is a great spot. I love living here. Been here all my life, but I have had the benefit of being able to travel and go look at other places, and not to take anything away from other places. I think there's a lot of beautiful destinations in this world, but something about Colorado is just awesome. I feel like it's just got everything that
it does.
For me, feels like it's got what I need.
It's special and it's diverse. So yeah. We can do a Colorado episode someday and talk about our trips, Ouray, and all the different places that you can go that are just world renowned. Absolutely amazing. That is, and it actually, that's a really good segue, because Colorado as a state, as far as living goes, I mean, yeah, we'll get away from the cost of living for a minute, because it is a little bit more expensive. But I will say, if you want to go out and have a life experience, Colorado is pretty epic. I mean, you can do everything from ski, right? World-renowned skiing, to backcountry hiking, to whitewater rafting, to fill in the blank. I mean, there's almost nothing that the world offers that Colorado doesn't have, especially throughout its seasons. And there's really no place quite like it due to elevation change and all the things that you get with it and the lushness. And I mean, there's just so much that's here. And then we have the politics of Colorado. And we have the crap that has invaded our state, and Denver and Boulder, and the garbage that is just taking over right now, and the stupid bills that are being passed. And I say stupid, I'll double down on they're flipping dumb and dangerous and a lot of different things. But Colorado, as far as living, awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I love Colorado, and I would love to see Colorado from here, hopefully maybe have some wins. It's possible if the right amount of people stand up, use their voices, they stop sitting on the couch, sitting on the bench, and they get out there and they really push for a better future for Colorado. I think that it's not beyond impossible to happen. Unfortunately, we have been a little bit overrun by some policy makers and some decisions in policy that obviously are definitely not in favor of how Colorado could live the best that it could.
Sure.
And we talked about this in a couple of episodes before. Just the people making the laws. You talked about Diane or Diana and
DeGette,
right, and her understanding of clips and how clips, after you shoot your clips in your gun, they're throwaway. We got to get rid of these high capacity clips. And to your point, those are the people who we've become overrun with, who, even if they don't really know what they're talking about, they act like they do and they push policies anyways. And that's a big problem. But I'm hoping that I'll stay optimistic, because Colorado's a special place. I really think that it is. And I think that if we continue to get the right people here and get some of the people that are already here to at least start showing up, speaking up, voting while they're educated. I mean, one of the things that blew my mind is whenever we had the vote pass for wolves to be reintroduced to the population here in Colorado. And I've been a bow hunter since I was 14 or 15 years old. I've been a rifle hunter long before that, but I switched to only bow hunting whenever I was 14 or 15, and that's all that I do for big game. I've never taken big game at all with anything other than a bow. So with that being the case, we've actually been talking to several people about bow season coming up here in September and just starting to plan about it. But as we're talking about Colorado and we're talking about some of the policies in place, I think that's a really good example to kind of just talk about for a second, about decisions that are being made that people have this way of making it sound like it's a good thing without really doing their homework, doing the research, and knowing exactly what it's going to do and what the effects are going to be long term. And my understanding so far, and this was the majority of people's understanding, even before the law passed, I was one of the people who voted no, absolutely no wolves in Colorado. And I know several other people who are of the hunting community that also voted that, and it passed. And I think a large reason for that is because of how many people are in Colorado that don't hunt, and that otherwise they don't really know anything other than, oh, wolves, that sounds kind of cool. Let's make sure that we're protecting this species and get their population back to healthy numbers in Colorado. That sounds cool. Well, as cool as it might sound, it's really not, because we've already seen several headlines. It's not only affecting the elk population in Colorado, but it's affecting already farmers in Colorado. It's affecting already homesteaders in Colorado. There's been sightings of wolves already in towns, and the population. I think that the big problem is as you have these people who introduce these policies, they're very slow to change the policy, even whenever there's an obvious need for them to be changed. So what I think we're going to see is that the wolves are going to rapidly overpopulate, and they're not going to be fast on the trigger pull to say, all right, here's some tags to be able to start hunting these things and manage the population. But regardless or not, we had pretty healthy numbers for our elk, our deer. We were getting pretty, and even with moose, we've been getting healthy numbers the past couple of years, and the wolves just made absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Right.
Other than, oh, hey, this is a good idea. Let's bring wolves back. This will be cool, right? Other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of thought beyond that, besides obviously whoever was lobbying and pushing for, hey, let's reintroduce this species. But this species in Colorado right now, we're seeing, is becoming quite an invasive species, and hurting the elk population, and also starting to hurt agricultural properties in some of the rural parts of those communities.
Do you think? So your points are well made, and I'm in agreement with you. I voted no on it. Do you think it's just a feel good thing? Is that what ultimately this stuff comes down to?
It's got to be. I mean,
because it's not a logic.
Don't get me wrong.
Thing.
I think wolves are cool. I think that there's lots of people who think that wolves are cool, but
Liam Neeson didn't,
and I don't blame him. All right, but those boomsticks were pretty cool.
He he knuckled up with some electrical tape and some glass, and went full bore at the end. But yeah, I've got to think that's what it comes down to. I think it's a feel good thing, and it's you sell it as an environmental deal, but there's almost no logic behind it, and that's how most of these laws are passed. I mean, let's be honest, they really are. If you sit down right now and you look at just the last, say, 5 bills that have been passed in Colorado, I can't find, and it certainly has something to do with my conservative nature, but even if I took my conservative nature out of it. I'm just trying to find logic in it. Like I can't even, that's like driving down the freeway to me and just dumping bags of nails out in the freeway and calling it a good idea because there's not enough metal inside of the concrete in the freeway. It's like, why would you do that? It makes no sense. That's just silly. And yet here we are sitting here talking about it right now as grown men, as business owners, as fathers, husbands, as we look into how it's impacted our school systems, as you talk about the wolves, how it's impacting nature, farms, all the stuff that's going on there. You're reading stories, not to mention the dangers in it. And it's not, I'm not anti-wolf. That's not even what our topic was about today, but as much as it's just these bills, but it's a really important point because when I sit down and I look at this, if I'm an ag guy and I've got 500,000 acres and I'm dependent on cattle or whatever it is that I've got out there, and somebody introduces something in, well, I'll give you an example. I mean, I'll go out to Colorado and go back to California for a minute. When Schwarzenegger was in office, I remember distinctly him fighting over these little fish in this stream that essentially turned into a river that turned into the farmland water for a large portion of California. And because it had this little tiny fish in it that everybody wanted to preserve, we ultimately got rid of the ability to water California. And so now all of the water comes from the Colorado River, which comes from Colorado. And at the end of the day, I can't wrap my head around some of this stuff because I understand environmentalists to a certain degree, but I don't understand the lack of logic that is utilized when you go out and you pass this stuff. And I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger sitting back saying, "This is terrible. We are literally going to lose so much farmland. We're going to put people out of business." And we're talking about this tiny little minnow thing that can survive anywhere, but they just didn't want it because it was this specific waterway that fed so much of California. The fish won. And at the end of the day, things are dried up and people are going out of business and livestock is dying. And it's like, so we're going to kill all of this to save this one thing. And there's just something that is very, very odd about that. We focus on the half of 1% at times while the 99% suffer. And I'm sorry, I can't wrap my head around that.
Well, it's one thing if there's actually a species that is going extinct. I believe in conservation.
Sure.
I believe that conservation is a good thing when done well. And I believe we have to keep tabs on the ecosystem and how many there is a population of different species. We have to have some system to be able to manage hunting and how many tags are issued, this, that, and the other. But there's a pretty healthy number of wolves out there. It's not like that they're really a species that's going to go extinct anytime soon. They have wolves many parts of the world. And in fact, there's plenty of even sanctuaries in Colorado for wolves. There's one in Florissant. That's not but maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours from here.
Sure.
There's a park that has a bunch of wolves, and they're controlled. They're confined. But releasing them into the wild, to your point, I mean, that choosing the fish won. Well, the wolves won in this, but who really won? Because, I mean, the wolves weren't with the voice trying to push, right. And I know that the fish weren't either. The point that I'm making is that I think that exactly what you said a minute ago, the feel good, that has to be the biggest part of it, is people just felt good, like they were doing something good. Oh, let's bring wolves back to Colorado. They used to be here before. Let's get them back here. Let's get wolves back in the wilderness and let's get this species thriving in Colorado again. And I think that's where a lot of people just voted, and they were otherwise completely uneducated as to what negative impacts it would potentially have and is now having on wildlife population and even agriculturally in a lot of those parts of where those wolves were reintroduced.
So deep dive for a second. I believe societally that is probably, I don't know, from an advertisement standpoint, I was sitting down, I was watching Prime the other day, and I don't pay for the commercial free, it comes with my free delivery thing, whatever. My $15 a month. I'm watching Prime the other day, and I had the same two medicine-based commercials come on. One had something to do with skincare, and another one was to do with depression. And I can tell you, over the course of a week where I had binge watched at night this one particular series, I got through 10 episodes, I bet I saw the same commercial 400 times. Of course, I'm embellishing, but I bet I saw it 100 times. And it just gets ingrained into your brain of this is what you need. This is what you need. This is the thing, right? Well, if you go backwards, I remember sitting around watching all of the Wolf commercials, all the whatever the number was for the deal that you were voting on, proposition, whatever. Reintroduce wolves into the environment, and this is good for the environment, and blah 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 blah. Well, let's deviate away from wolves for a minute. What did we have with House Bill 1312 that just literally just passed? It was on every channel, everywhere you turned, and this is going to be pro-family and pro-choice, and you're giving opportunities for your kids that your kids would never have, and this is amazing because it's a freedom. And kids should have freedom. And when you word it in ways like that, people hear that and they go, oh, this is amazing. What the bill is, and we discussed this briefly, is now kids can go get castrated, never tell the parents, the schools can be involved, hide it from them, courts can come in and take kids away. It didn't say any of that. None of that language was used, right? And even if you dug into it, none of it was used. And when you started reading the bill, until you got into the prosecutorial aspect of what could happen if you don't comply, only there do you see the language. But the way those commercials were, you would have thought, man, we're giving kids the ability to levitate. Like, this is incredible. These kids are going to be superheroes. And at the end of the day, what we did is we gave them a green light to go destroy their bodies, and parents can't have any say. And that, to me, is emotion-based. People see it. They think it's a feel-good thing. I'm voting for it. I mean, how many people out there, this stuff, I don't know, fires me up a little bit, but how many people out there realistically want kids to be castrated? I mean, when you stop and think about it, from the morbidness of it, the horrificness of it, the tragedy that this thing is going to create long term. And again, I know we discussed this for a minute, but I'm using it as a point. How many people really want that? And if you're a person that wants that, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, I don't understand. Like, you're actually think that there is something good that comes from that. Well, if you think there's something good from that, man, I've got all sorts of comments that I could throw out that I want to be careful on. But at the end of the day, I just don't see any value in it in any way, shape, or form. And even if the kid is struggling, again, as we previously said, there's counseling, there's a lot of opportunities, but there's parenting that can be done. There's lots of stuff. But when you just strip all the rights away and immediately give that choice to that kid who's 14 or 15, protect him within the school, protect him within the courts. This is why I'd love to get George Brockler, the DA for the 23rd, in here right now and sit down and talk about this stuff. Like, are you actually prosecuting this? I really want to know. Like, is this something that you guys would go after as the district attorney here in Douglas County and Elmer and all the districts that you represent? Is this something that if it landed on your docket, would you truly pursue this? Because this is now law. And this is the stuff when I ask if it's feel good, I've got to think that vast majority of people that voted for that passed it, did it out of emotion and did not do it out of logic, reason, or sound mind. That I've got to. I just can't wrap my head around it any other way. It just makes no sense.
So do you think that there's like this system, and I think that you've pretty much already answered, and I think I know the answer, but there's got to be this system and these maybe trigger words that people have realized they can put or embed into their messaging in advertisements that'll get people thinking a certain way about a certain bill and what they're going to vote on. And they just make them almost guilt-tripped into this kind of logic behind, oh, support this, vote yes for this, this is going to be good. But they're not obviously giving the full detail of what this is, but they're using enough language that they have either learned that works, or maybe even worse than that, have over years and years of kind of the same thing, hammering it, maybe have programmed a lot of their voters. They hear some of these words, some of this messaging, and they're like, oh, I got to support this.
Sure.
And it just comes from some of those ad campaigns, some of those marketing campaigns where they're getting the word out and they're making it sound one way without really being open and transparent about the real vernacular, the real fine-lined items within these bills. You think there's a lot of that? Because it seems like there's got to be a lot of that to me.
Well, I think it's ill-intended, it's tactical, and it's intentional. You said the other day, it was funny because you looked over at me and you said, maybe this is one thing. I don't think you said we disagree on, but we look at it differently when I was calling this stuff insane or stupid. I hadn't even gotten to the intentional part yet. And you went to the intent and you said, I think this is intentional. It's evil. I would reiterate it in that way. I think that's exactly what it is. I think it's by design. And, there are dudes out there. I've never listened to one of his episodes. I followed 4 or 5 news stories about this Alex Jones guy. He's the dude that does the conspiracy theory podcast, right? I think there's probably 10% truth in most of what he's talking about, in most of it. He sounds a little far-fetched on some of the things, but the point is, if you're asking, and I guess it depends on how it's delivered, I would ask, why would you write it in a verbiage or a specific vernacular to deceive unless you're trying to deceive? Like, what would be the selling feature? Like, I would never promote a product that I'm promoting it 179 degrees the opposite of what the product does. If I'm trying to sell my product, I'm not going to be in business for very, very long. So, and you can pick any product you want. I'm not going to go out and sell an amazing running shoe that doesn't have soles on it. That you get them in the mail and all of a sudden you open them up and there's nothing in the bottom of the shoe. How long is that going to last, right? And we could come up with a billion examples off the top of our heads instantly of stuff that you would never promote that doesn't make any sense. But when you lie about it and you deceive, there's an intent behind that. The intent is to get that thing into action. And to your point, the greater call, the bigger whatever, I still think comes back to control. And I don't think that's a conspiracy theory anymore. I think people have woke up, not woke. I don't like that term, but I mean literally have awoken. And I think the Faucis of the world did a lot of damage, quite frankly. And I think there's a lot of guys out there, and I'm using him as an example, but when you can go back and if you spend 15 minutes researching that guy, you will find that he countered almost every single thing that he ever claimed. If you go back in time and you look at it, there's interview after interview after interview with this guy where he is espousing the opposite, literally the polar opposite of what took place during COVID prior to COVID. And I've got to think somewhere along the lines, people have there's a group of people that have had enough. And then I think the world, quite frankly, has had enough. Now, you still have pockets of people that are getting a lot of attention, the trans community, this non-binary garbage. There's elements that I think are just given way too much credit for stuff that is just, quite frankly, is just garbage. There's not even real in some cases. This whole men having births, and I watched some lady testify in front of Congress as a doctor and scolding this congressman as, I'm the doctor, I think I know more. And it's like, no, you're a buffoon because men can't have babies. Like, why are we even discussing this? But the fact that it even gets that far, I think validates your point, is because it comes down to, we're sold a bill of goods, it's done with intent, and now you have people running with it, and we're spending lots and lots of money and time and energy on stuff that actually isn't even a thing. And the average everyday consumer does, in my opinion, the person, you and me, everybody else, we don't want to be bombarded with this stuff. I don't want to wake up every day reading about this or hearing about it or dealing with it or sitting down and having a mentorship with a guy that came to me a week ago whose kid is now considering, right now, I don't want to be a boy anymore. He's 13. And this has just rocked this family. I mean, to the core. So when they pass these laws, they don't deal with the byproduct of it. They don't deal with the fallout. They're just dealing with the fact that there's a law in place now that says this kid can go do this thing. And now it's a real deal. And to this family, I'm telling you right now, there is nothing bigger going on in their life. Absolutely nothing. They walked in one day, paying their mortgage, running their business, doing their thing, getting their paycheck, going down to King Soopers, picking up their food, cooking it, and they come home the next day, and their kid wants to be something that he can't be ever. You can't physically ever change and be this thing. You can have all the surgeries in the world, do all this nonsense, but you're never going to change. You're always going to have your chromosome. You're always going to have this, and then later you're going to have this regret. And at what cost? So whether we're talking about wolves or we're talking about transitions or we're talking about gun rights or we're talking about whatever, I think all of this stuff is done like a thief in the night with intent. Most of it is evil. Most of it is not good. Not all of it, but most of it. And I would certainly say most of it comes across as, to most people, is very frustrating and irritating. And why are we dealing with this? And it's not even a thing. And then when you get into real substantive issues, things that are actual problems that we all have to deal with, like road and bridge construction and I-25 and, all the things that affect our daily lives, that's the stuff where we're wanting our tax dollars to go to say, hey, we're paying for services. We want to have emergency medical response. We want to have water. We want to have roadways that operate. And instead, we're spending billions of dollars on research on crap that is literally not even a thing. And we've been sold a bill of goods. And I think people have literally now they're realizing it. I don't know why they didn't before. Maybe I'm ahead of my time, or maybe I'm just slow to the punch. I don't know I don't even know how to feel sometimes depending on the issue, because there's things I don't know what I don't know until I dig into it. But I know men can't have babies. I know that. And I know it's being debated in Congress. Like why are we debating this thing?
It's pretty crazy how far we have fallen as far as what's being considered substantive material to discuss and debate. But really beyond, because obviously I would agree with you, it's definitely frustrating and it's aggravating that at the level that it is, at the high levels, the intent is so maddening. It's so frustrating that there's people making these policies and putting them out there and they don't care about the recourse. In fact, maybe they do care about the aftermath in this light. Maybe they care because they have the intent. They want to see this society destroyed.
Well, of course.
I believe that there's definitely a level of that. I believe that there's people who are not pro-America that act like they're pro-America, but they really want to see America's demise. And that's maddening and that's aggravating and frustrating. But for just a minute, I want to talk specifically about this boy that you've mentioned, 13-year-old. For me, that goes beyond frustration. Yes, I'm very mad that we as society, we have very much failed him. But it also just breaks my heart. That is just so sad. As a 13-year-old, I remember whenever I was 12, 13, 14, you have enough to worry about just trying to find your place in this world, trying to fit in, trying to figure out where you have a place. And to now have this major distraction that just weighs on you, that you have these voices creeping in from every single angle saying, maybe you feel out of place because you're not this. Maybe it's because you this. Maybe it's because you're not who you were born to be. Maybe you were born to be somebody else. And just hearing myself say that through the headphones, hopefully there's some people that are listening that can hear how evil that is, that can hear a voice like that. You should be able to see the red flags all around it. Maybe you're not who you were born to be. Maybe we need to change that. That is so, number one, that's just a complete lie and a complete distraction. And it's one more thing for an adolescent to have to worry about and be distracted with and be caught up with and trip over. Whenever you already have enough to stress about, whenever you're going through a lot of changes in your body, in your life, and in your own surroundings, your own community. But to have this overwhelming voice that is clearly, the intent is completely corrupt, it's completely evil, but it is surrounding and it is pounding at the door of all of our kids, all of our teenagers. Right now, more than ever, we've got to have parents be aware and stand up for this and fight this evil, because it's coming for every single child, every single teen that's out there. And it's trying to make its way to adults as well. I think there's a lot of adults that are grounded in their identity already, but we have to be so careful and aware that these agendas and this evil intent is absolutely pounding at the door, trying to get its claws into our kids and trying to make our kids, the future of this country, the future of society, completely fail.
Why do you think it's happening? What is the point behind it? So I didn't sarcastically just throw out the whole congressional debate, men can have babies. Let's focus on that for just a second, because I'm going to come back to the kid in a minute, because I'm dealing with this family one-on-one. There was stop and think. So I'm going to give a very short backstory. I testified before Colorado Congress years ago on school safety initiatives and why we need communications. And I'm just doing a broad overview. I got 3 minutes. I had to wait a month before I testified. I got 3 minutes. I sat before 7 people up on this panel. And I can tell you of the 7 people I sat before, 4 of them were sitting there on their cell phones. One of them was on their cell phone smiling while I was starting to testify. This is a true story. You can pull it up on camera right now, I guess. We went back into the State House archives. I got to about the 60-second mark, and I stopped, and I will admit, I got a case of the butt, most definitely, and I looked up and I said, hey, can I get your attention for a second? Because I feel like I'm distracting you from whatever you're doing on your phones. 4 of the people that were playing on their phones, 3 of them looked up at me. The other person continued on. So I sat there in silence for literally a 60-second mark. So at the 1 minute mark, I interrupted him. At the 2 minute mark, I hadn't said anything for 60 solid seconds. And the lady finally looked up at me. And she said, I'm sorry, you're not saying anything. And I said, ma'am, with all due respect, I didn't wait a month to come in here to get a 3-minute window to have you sit over there and play on your phone. And then I looked at her and I asked her one question. I said, do you know what I just said in my opening? Do you even know why I'm sitting here right now? And she stared at me and I said, you don't know, do you? You do not know what I'm talking about right now. Like even the topic. And she literally turned away and would not acknowledge me. Those are our lawmakers. Now, I want to be clear. They're not all like that. Maybe that was an anomaly. I want to give an olive branch because I do know some lawmakers that are out there that are unprecedented, awesome. And I mean on epic levels that are literally fighting for our country right now, have fought and bled for our country, have had my buddy, I'll just put it out here right now. So one of my dearest friends in life is Eli Crane. He's a congressman out of Arizona. Eli on September 11th, watched the towers come down. On September 12th, he enlisted in the military. He went to Buds. He failed out of Buds the first round, went back for a second round. He's like, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. He made it, multiple tours. His CO was Chris Kyle. Eli has sat down with me on dozens of occasions. I travel back and forth to Arizona. He comes out here. We break bread. We go to conferences together. Our families hang out. This guy's a patriot. He is a patriot's patriot. This guy is through and through America, but he's also through and through Jesus Christ. He is unequivocally one of the most honorable, integrity-based men I know, and he takes a beating in Congress because of his faith, because where he stands, and because he served his country from Congress. The people that are representing the country, Eli takes a beating over. I think we can circle this whole conversation back to the example I just gave you. We have folks that are fighting for this country right now that are matched with literally also unprecedented evil on Capitol Hill in the Beltway that are dead set on destroying this country. And they're voted into office by people that are dead set on destroying this country. And it's simple to say, well, if you don't like it, move somewhere else. Go to Tehran. Go wherever. But that's a flippant statement. The reality is we got to come together and figure this stuff out. Now, to go back to this, the reason I brought all that up is to go back to this child. Eli's never, ever, ever going to endorse it. In fact, you pull up some of his videos. He went one-on-one with the fencing committee because there was a trans person that was competing in the women's sports as a dude, and this girl bowed out. It made national news. So they brought the director of the fencing community in, and Eli went one-on-one with this guy. It's a best 5-minute videos I've seen all year. And just really asked the really important technical questions. And of course, this guy just sat over there in dead silence, tried to make excuses when he said anything at all. But we all knew it was a bunch of garbage. And I can't figure out, and that's why I was asking you the why. Why does this happen? Because we're endorsing stuff that's not real. We're promoting stuff that's not real, but we're spending time on it. And the reason I've gone long-winded on this is I sat before Congress here in Colorado and got no attention on the very subject matter I went in for. What a huge waste of time. So I'm a taxpayer, I'm a citizen, I'm coming in, and I'm literally talking about stuff that's going to save kids' lives, and these people couldn't have given a buffalo nickel about what I was saying. And that ticks me off because I also know that there's good people, and I wish there would have had been people on the panel that day. But I come full circle with this. That kid that is going through this right now, you're right. He's been bombarded. But you know where he's getting bombarded from? The Beltway. He's getting bombarded from the people that are the lobbyists going in, passing this stuff, because these guys don't know what they're voting on some of the times, quite frankly. They get a docket, it gets put in front of them, and there's 30 things on a docket, and they got a lobbyist sitting over their ear, whispering into their ear, saying, hey, here's the thing that you want to vote yes on, or here's the thing you want to vote no on. And that's the most education some of these guys get. And I'll bring in Ken Buck or anybody else that's ever served and sit down and say, hey, tell me I'm wrong on that. And Ken would look at me dead in the eye and go, no, you're not wrong. That's exactly how it goes. Because there's so much that's being introduced. So they're in the Beltway, they're being bombarded too. They're being bombarded by things that are being lobbied for out here, wolves, right? And they end up voting for it because it goes down, it toes party line at the end of the day, even though we all know it's a bunch of garbage and it doesn't make sense. This is the stuff that's taken up time up on Capitol Hill. It's taken up time here in Denver, down on the state house. And so I don't know what to do other than what we're doing right now. And then the parental front is the single most important element right now, I believe, in society here in America. I believe we have to have parents that are willing to not only take a stand, but to sit down and walk these journeys and also meet the challenge head on. And I'll get off my soapbox, but we need a lot more people that are stepping up and saying, whoa, because at the end of the day, a 13-year-old can't make a decision like this, and it's tearing this family apart. And it's one family. It's but one family. And I've got to think that there are tens of thousands out there, if not more, that are going through the exact same thing right now. We just don't know about it. It's terrifying. I threw a lot at you. Sorry.
You did, but that's okay, because I think a very important point that was kind of made in some of what you said, with there being so many different people involved in Congress, the people who are making laws, not just within states, but within federal law as well. There definitely seems to be a certain disregard for what America is, or what it's supposed to be, and what it historically has been.
For sure.
And to your point, there are patriots out there. I haven't met your buddy Eli, but I believe that there are patriots out there, and we said it, and I'll say it again. We said it on one episode before. You and I both, we believe that most people are good.
Yep.
Everybody on this earth has the capacity for good, whether they choose it or not. That's up to them and their free will. But regardless or not, if you're going to call yourself a patriot, if you're going to call yourself patriotic, and you believe in and you stand for America, what is America? That's where it feels like a lot of this, the country right now, if you asked 10 different people just randomly on the street, what is America? That would be a very interesting thing to do.
It would.
That would be an interesting piece of content to see what varies. How many people would say what? Who knows what? But if you were to ask me that right now, I would go back to what I understand, what I remember even from a kid, and that is the Pledge of Allegiance. The very first thing we say when we talk about our nation is we say one nation under God.
Right.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One nation under God is where it starts.
Sure.
And the country has been as blessed as it has been because right there in some of the very first rights that we were given, people had an understanding there is God. They may have been running away from some of the liberties that they lacked before, and they were coming to colonize America for freedom, but they still understood that even though they were getting freedom from some of those limitations they had in their last communities, they still understood that they had an obligation before God. They weren't running away from God.
Sure.
In a lot of instances, they were running toward God. They wanted more freedom to be able to live their life for God the way that they understood the Bible wanted them to live their life for God. America is, at its core, what we're supposed to be. If you're a patriot, then you're believing in that still. America is one nation under God, indivisible. That's very important because right now, look at what the powers that be are trying to do.
Sure.
First of all, not even trying, they have. They've taken the Bible, they've taken God out of the schools. And they've started with that, but now there's nothing but division. Oh, if they can't get on board with this, cancel them. It's over. If they say there's more than two genders, cancel them. If they don't say there's more than two genders, cancel them.
Right.
The list goes on. That's division. That is division. There's no better example of trying to completely divide and disrupt a community, a society, America, trying to divide America. And right now we have hopefully with as many as we've already talked about earlier in this episode, a way to be able to get information out there, whether it's from us or anybody else. Open your eyes and see that the intent and the agenda is to get us to be divided against each other. If you want to believe what you want to believe, you have the right and the freedom to do so, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. If you're hurting somebody else, that's where you have to be able to draw the line and say, your right to freedom does not include you hurting somebody else.
Sure.
Right now, the freedoms and liberties in this country, they have been pushed so far into the legislation where they're affecting kids, and not only affecting, but targeting kids, targeting families, to where families can't even be able to have a voice in their own kid's life. That's what we've seen in Colorado. That's what we're seeing in Colorado. The law is literally trying to divide families more than it ever has by saying, parents, you can't talk to your kids about this stuff. And if you do, you better be on board with whatever your kids say. You can't tell them what you think. It's all about what they think.
Right.
How horrible is that? Because that's completely unbiblical. That's the complete opposite of what we as Christians are called to do. We're called in the Bible as parents, train up a child in the way that he should go. Children are impressionable. They need love. They need support. They need direction. And we have to be able as parents to give them that.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing in this House bill in Colorado is that they're trying to literally say you can't direct your child. You can't tell them what's right and what's wrong.
Well,
that's horrible.
Unequivocally, it's what it is, and it was done with malice, with intent. I got fiery a minute ago because this stuff. You said something very interesting when you started doing the Pledge of Allegiance, because injustice for all. I personally believe that's where we've gotten a little sideways from the standpoint of what does that mean? Because so let me dumb this down for a second. Let's really take this thing to an extreme. That's very, very simple. Douglas County High School. 3 miles from here? 1,500 students. Both my kids graduated from there. It was the first high school in Douglas County. There's multiple high schools here now, but first high school in Douglas County goes all the way back to the beginning of this thing and the inception of this county. They build this building. Hundreds of thousands of people have graduated now over the years in Douglas County, and tens of thousands have graduated from Douglas County High School. Do you realize last year that they had water bowls on the ground for people that identified as dogs and cats? You're in arguably one of the top 10 greatest socioeconomic counties in the United States of America. And somewhere in the administrator's policies, procedures, and let's just call them actionable steps, they put dog and cat bowls down for people that want to identify as that. And you think, in my brain, I don't want to think of somebody else, I don't want to speak for them, but in my brain, I go, really? Like, we're putting dog bowls down. Okay.
Well, could you put like an ATM in there with unlimited capacity
Right.
if I want to identify as Bill Gates or Elon Musk for a second, or what? That is just it's so ridiculous.
But it's injustice for all, though. So what is the for all? Is the for all the new made up cat? What I'm getting at is it the new made up category? Because I look at it as human being, male, female, boy, girl, going to school, getting educated. Hopefully our teachers are doing a good job. Hopefully our parents are doing a good job. Hopefully the kids are being responsible. It's everybody's responsibility in some way, shape, or form. Right now, what we're doing is we're going, I can be whatever I want to be, and justice for all. Well, does all include lunacy? And because somewhere in there's got to be a dividing line. Like sooner or later, you got to stop and you got to go, well, wait a second. You're not a dog. You can't be a dog. You're never going to be a dog. Why then would the school put a dog bowl down, right? Like somebody made that decision. Now, if they made it out of humor and they made it out of sarcasm because Douglas County said, not on our watch. Oh, you want to play this game? Okay, fine. We'll put something out there and we'll demonstrate just how silly this is. I would have had a lot of respect for the administration if they had done that, because then they would be taking a stand and going, come on, you got to be kidding. Oh, no. This was done with dead seriousness. And that's what's concerning to me. So when somebody comes in and says, man, we got a problem with the school board. Oh, we got a problem, all right. We got a massive problem. Let's just start with the dog bowl. We haven't even gotten into any of the other content. Let's just get to the simplest, dumbest thing that we can possibly get to. And I think that the average everyday American, I don't care how you vote, knows that's silly. But yet we have people that tout party lines, so they vote along those lines and they go along with these things. Back in the day, it was abortion. Now we got dog bowls in high schools so kids can identify as a dog. Like, and where does it end? Where does it stop? And this is the thing when you said a minute ago, parents got to be involved, and you have to. Like, because this is what you're battling. Your kids, I mean, let's be honest. If your kids are in school, they're away from you 7.5, 8 hours out of the day. Who's impacting them? Who's influencing them? Show me your friends. I'll show you your future. Show me your educational process. I'll show you your outcome. What do the parents get? 30 minutes, 45, an hour at home at night. And if you're on your phone or you're busy and you're not connecting, or you let your kid go play on the iPad all night long, I'm not against these things, but somewhere we got to put some degree of common sense back into the family and into the schools and into the educational process and into politics. And I could just keep going on and on and on my tangent. It just ticks me off because at the end of the day, we're talking about stuff again that's not real, but it is the thing that is taking up the majority of our time, our experiences. It's impacting our emotions, the fallout. I mean, this is huge. And we haven't even seen the end result of what it's really going to do yet because we're not far enough down the road. Right now we have opinion, we have perception, we have very little perspective. I think 5 years from now, we're going to have a lot of perspective.
Man, well, hopefully voices get out there and there's a shift in the way that we're heading. Because just imagine this. You gave Douglas County High School as an example, and they've gone to that extreme. Douglas County is still one of the most conservative counties in Colorado. It's still,
which is saying something.
It says something I think even more important that we haven't even really discussed in detail, and that is how corrupt the education system is, because it's one of the most conservative counties in Colorado. And I believe that if you look at the map, still the overwhelming majority was on the red side of voting in every single thing that there was to vote for on ballots over the past several years. It's stayed red.
Right.
And here we have a school enacting policies like that and in complete defiance of the people who actually go to school there and the communities that are surrounding there. So that shows how far the education system has fallen to where what can we even do to change it? What can the people who actually live here do to change it? Is there a way that people who send their kids to that high school can vote these things off and say, absolutely not in my public school? Because it would seem like the majority of people in Douglas County and in Castle Rock would say, get that out of there. This is ridiculous. Well, what are you teaching our kids?
Yeah, so for people that don't know, I sound like the Debbie Downer right now. I'm just hitting reality. This is just reality stuff. This isn't me making something up or just going to an extreme. This is the kind of stuff that's happening every single day. So I'd much rather be talking about my 1,000 horsepower Shelby and having fun right now. But let's be honest. This is the stuff that's impacting people's lives. 350,000 people here in Douglas County. A lot of people here here in the local community go to Douglas County High School, but I'm sure this is everywhere. I'm speculating, but I've seen so many stories nationwide now. Here in Colorado, what concerns me, because you just hit the nail on the head, everybody voted red at the county level except essentially Denver, Boulder, and I think there was one other county in the last election. What does that tell you? So your big city populace, as it is everywhere, Baltimore, Detroit, Philadelphia, Miami, I don't care where you go, anything that votes blue that has tons of welfare problems and expenses, on and on and on and on. These things have been proverbial train wrecks for decades. They never come out of it. Why don't people see it? I mean, to me, it's a really simple question. And it's not because I go, well, Republicans have all the answers. They don't. You've heard me say it. I've said it on videos for years and years and years. Right wing, left wing, it's all the same bird. It's all politics. The only thing that differentiates it are the dissenters or the people that are willing to take the stand against it. The one thing that Congress, I said it the other day, I'll say it again, and I'll continue saying it until it changes. The one thing that Congress agrees on, there's one thing in the United States of America that Congress agrees on: no term limits for Congress people. That should infuriate every tax-paying citizen in America. I don't care how you vote. That should infuriate you. We do not need the, what's his name from Kentucky? God, I just drew a blank. The guy on the Republican side. Anyway, the Chuck Schumers, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, but they're on both sides of the aisle. And these guys that have been 40, 50, 60 years in government, saying the same thing, shape-shifting, doing all the stuff they're doing. We have it in local politics too. We have the same people here in Douglas County. I'll leave one person nameless, but I can tell you she's run for every office that there is. Every office that there is in Douglas County. Everyone. And she's a train wreck. She's a slow-moving train wreck in every situation. So we have good people. We have great people out there that want to make a difference. The problem is you just have a system that it favors those that play the system. And at the end of the day, again, there's good people, but left wing, right wing, it's all the same bird. And most of these people that get into it, power corrupts absolutely. And it's terrifying to me when I sit down and I think about it, because my kids graduated that school and both have gone on to great success. They had tremendous teachers. They had administrators there that did a wonderful job. We coached. Jana coached on the track team. I coached high school hockey. I can tell you I had 95% or more of the time had great experiences at that high school. But of the small portion of bad experiences, they were awful bad experiences. And that school board down there, anybody that's lived in Douglas County for 25, 30 years, this was the most contentious school board probably in the nation. It's made national news multiple times contentiously because of decisions that have been made. It is not, even though this is an amazing county and it votes red and we lean red and all this stuff, that school board has been a slow-moving train wreck for as long as I've lived here. The school board specifically. And it doesn't really matter who's gotten in. We've not been able to fix it because we just keep putting all the power back to 6 or 7 people to fix it, and the parents walk away. In my opinion, it's the parents that need to be involved in going down and holding the school board to account.
Parents definitely has to start there, but it has to be beyond parents. It has to be this wake-up call, I think, for everybody. Just let me make this point for just a second here. There was a couple years ago, you have visited my dad's church. You've seen the transient activity down there. You know that he's not necessarily downtown Denver, but he's decently close. His church is in Denver.
Going there tonight, as a matter of fact.
A couple of years ago, probably more than a couple of years ago, but a homeless dude took a dump in the trash enclosure, okay? And I don't remember exactly what happened as far as how it got to. I think what it was is I think they made some kind of a complaint or they alerted authorities, whatever it might have been, saying, hey, there was somebody who trespassed and did this. And basically they were just trying to make sure that, hey, this guy can't just be running around taking a dump on people's property. But that triggered to where whenever they came to investigate or wherever, they said, oh, yeah, nobody else can pick this up. You have to get a hazmat team.
Oh, yeah.
And just for the point that I'm making here, okay, well, this is the government for you. This dude takes a dump. You have to get a hazmat team to come and remove it for you. But we're going to put a cat litter box in a bathroom and have a regular janitorial staff to clean up people's poop and pee from this cat litter box that we are letting people, human beings, identify as cats. Because I don't know if you said that there was one in Douglas County, but I have heard, I don't have it necessarily confirmed, but I have heard that there are literally litter boxes in schools. And I heard that there was one in Castleview, which is another high school here in Castle Rock.
I hadn't heard that, but
I heard somebody tell me that there was a litter box in one of the bathrooms, if not both. Now, was that a joke or serious? I don't know, but obviously with there being dog bowls, cat bowls, whatever, it's not too far off. And there's definitely not a question that if there's somebody who said that, which it would have been somebody who went to school there that would have told me that, it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
But that is the double-sided. Oh, you can't have a regular person clean up human feces. Has to be a hazmat team. Oh, but never mind. We changed our minds. We're going to put litter boxes in human bathrooms. That is the government. That is literally how two-faced they are. And at the end of all of this, I believe truly you have to be able to look, because you just now said a little bit ago, what does this look like 5 years down the road? Well, we should be able to at least have some basic level of common sense, basic level of deductive reasoning to kind of be able to see where this can lead. And it's nowhere good at all. You have to be able to see where do you think this is going to happen whenever you have, you're fostering kids into believing that they can be not only different genders, but now different species.
Right.
That is going to be completely the downfall. That is going to be the complete downfall of society as we know it.
Right.
If we let it continue and we do nothing about it, we're going to see a complete collapse.
Well, yes, we are. I think it's coming, quite frankly, either way because it's scriptural, it's biblical. And if you don't believe in the Bible and you don't want to go there, well, then just look out your window, just watch the news, And it's not a Debbie Downer. It's just a reality. We're going so fast, we can't keep up. But I want to go back to one point, and then I want to transition for a minute. Transition. What a terrible choice of words. I want to move away from this subject. But I do want to make a point because I'm not a big social media debater guy. I've made the mistake a few times of throwing some comments out there like I disagree with something. The next thing I know, I get blown up, and I'm like, I'm just not getting into that game. But I do want to say something because I saw a post a while ago on this whole cat bowl, dog bowl thing in Douglas County, and then somebody got on there and said, "Oh no, this was a made up story. This is not a true thing." I'm gonna look in the camera and say, "Yeah, it was," because I talked to like 50 kids at the pool where we were at over the high school. We were playing football out there one day from one end of the pool to the other. And there's a quarterback on one end and quarterback on the other. All the high school kids, they just busted out of school. It was like the last year or the last day of the year last year. And they all come to the pool and they have a great time. And they throw a big party for everybody and snacks and all this stuff. And this topic came up. And I can tell you it was confirmed by 50 out of 50 kids that said that they've seen it. It had been there multiple times. It wasn't a joke. They had taken it to the administrators and they said, no, it's a thing. So I just wanted to clarify that because there were some people that said, oh, this is a made up story. No, it's not. Go to your kids and ask them. So that's the thing on that. But I want to move away from this just for a minute because I want to go to, if we can, why we do what we do. I think that this is a really important deal. I was talking to Kyle this morning. He was coming up, he was commenting on the first couple episodes, and he was really appreciative of it. And he was talking about the content on where we were going. And specifically the daily carry, he said, "Hey, I like the set. You guys have done a really good job. There's not a lot of down air time. You're finding stride already in just the first couple episodes. So thank you, Kyle. That means a lot." But why we're doing what we're doing right now, for me, I had a pretty sleepless night last night after the last week, lost a buddy. Finally got to chat with the family a couple days ago. And then I was talking to this family last night on this whole transitioning thing. We were on the phone and I had a pretty restless night, had some bad dreams, got up and walked around a good bit. And in just prayerful thought, I said, I want to come on this show today. And I've been intentional about what I'm talking about, but I really want to be humble and have a degree of humility that I want to be very clear. I don't look in the camera and say, I have no idea half the time what I'm talking about when it comes to stuff. I can have an opinion on something, but I tend to if I'm going to open my mouth on it, I've either tried to vet it or research it, or if I'm going to have a comment on it, I usually try to draw from experience. And one of the things that's really important to me on the daily carry is that we carry humility and we carry integrity. And at the exact same time, we deep dive into the things that we believe are relevant. Otherwise, there would be no point for the show. And we'll have fun shows. I mean, we'll have, we'll talk the cars and the hunting and the stuff that we've not gotten into. The reason we've gotten into some pretty specific topical stuff is because, quite frankly, I wake up to it and go to bed with it every night. And so do you. And so does everybody else. And I've had, in the last 3 weeks since we've been doing this whole prep for this thing and even during our filming, I've had nothing but conversations about this stuff. And I'm not starting the conversations. That's what's been bothering me. I went to a cornhole tournament the other night that Chris Royer threw over at his place. Amazing, by the way. We're out at a cornhole event, just throwing bags back and forth, having a good time. And the topic on either side of me, left or right, was the policies that's going on in Colorado right now. And people talking about wanting to move that have been here for 25 years. And they're saying, I want to get out of here, but I love Colorado, the state of Colorado. I hate the politics so bad that I want to go. That was the topic of conversation at a fun event where you're supposed to be out laughing and just, So it is hard to get away from. And I think here on the Daily Carry, for me, and I believe for you, we want to make sure that we're speaking into what we know and we stay in our lane. But if we're going to go outside of our lane, we're talking about it from an observation and maybe a history lesson to try to bring context to it, not because we're proverbial experts on anything. That's one of the things I love about Joe Rogan. Joe's very good at bringing people on every topic there is, on every side of the aisle. and having a really helpful, thoughtful debate. Very seldom have I ever seen Joe Rogan get upset on his own podcast. People get a little heated on there, going back and forth with stuff, but I want to make sure that people know why we're doing what we're doing early on in episode 5. So when we hit episode 500, we've carried the same consistency throughout. That to me, I just want people to know that, because that's important. We're not just coming on to have a podcast. There's a million podcasts you can go listen to. This stuff matters to you and I. And when we get into your jits world or my tactical world, I mean, this is our fun world, and this is the stuff we get to do. We get to help people. But when we're talking about House Bill 1312 and the mutilation of kids, you darn right. I mean, there's language I want to put out that I just am not going to say on here out of respect for our listeners, out of respect for your gym, the way we talk. But it ticks me off. It makes me mad because it's unprecedented evil, and we just don't have enough people that are taking a stand against this stuff, and that's why these laws pass. And that right there is why we're talking about this. And
let me piggyback off of what you just said, because I think that's an important thing to just cover for a second. Is you and I set that tone and that precedent early in the first episode that we want to make sure that we are talking about things that we know about, that we're not just going to be shooting from the hip on topics. But at the same time, I think that for anybody listening, Micah has quite a bit of experience behind him. And he definitely has a unique position to be qualified to talk about a lot of this stuff, just from your background in law enforcement, but life experiences in general. Myself, I'm young, 28 years old. I have a lot to learn.
I thought you were 29.
I'm 28. I just turned 28 in February. But I have a lot to learn, but I've learned a lot, and I've been through a lot in my few short years on this planet so far. And I will never act like I'm an expert in anything. Even being a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I'm not going to act like I'm an expert in jiu-jitsu. I still have the world to learn in jiu-jitsu. And that's the way that I believe you're just supposed to approach life in general, is always learning, always growing. If you reach a point where you feel like that you're bigger, badder, smarter, that's the person in the room that usually not very many people can really stand to be around.
Yeah.
You want to be teachable. You want to be a student. But at the same time, you got to have a voice and share what you do know. And even if you don't know everything about it, you got to have courage to talk about it and to learn about it. Because I think that that's a big problem in this world that information travels so fast. I think that might be one of the reasons why so many people might be otherwise nervous or afraid to have a voice and to use their voice, is because, well, there's other experts way more qualified than me to talk on this. Let them talk. I'm afraid if I start talking, I'm going to look like an uneducated person, like an unqualified person. And to some degree, yeah, maybe don't talk about what you don't know, but if you're going to talk about it, you can always just preface it, well, I'm eager to learn. I want to learn about this. Let's talk about it. But it doesn't mean you're not allowed to have an opinion. Your opinion is something that's supposed to be plastic. Your opinion is something that's supposed to be able to be changed you grow as a person and as you learn. And so as you're learning and growing, it doesn't mean that you're silent that whole time. I do believe that there are certainly many times in life where it's better to listen than to speak. But at the same time, you can't let this fear or even maybe insecurity at times keep you from voicing your opinion on what you have learned so far.
Right.
And what you and me are doing on this podcast right now, even just talking, it's not like we have some massive following, but the people who do follow us, the people who have tuned in and listened so far, we're putting ourselves out there, and we're living in a world today where even what we've talked about in these few episodes, 5 episodes, there's a lot of people that are on the same page as you and me that otherwise sometimes they're just a little bit too afraid to put it out there in public. Why? Because we live in a world where people who are spineless, people who are really otherwise pretty much cowards, they have this shield and this way to communicate to people with the protection of the internet. This cushy, I can be at home and not have to deal with anybody face to face, and I can just put this little snarky comment and try to make them feel bad about what they said on this or this, that, and the other. You mentioned getting into comment jousts a couple of times. A lot of times, man, it's a complete waste of time, because you're dealing with people who all they want to do is sit at home and argue with everybody online.
Right.
And there are people, don't get me wrong, there definitely are people who they will talk in person, and you can look up not only debates, but you can see even some of the protests. But at the end of all of that, whenever you really look at it and you dive into it, a lot of people who are lobbying for some of the things that are contrary to what you and I have spoken about on these episodes so far, a lot of times it's just mindless screaming. There's not any points being made. There's not any data. There's not any research. There's not anything that's grounded in anything real. It's just, I'm screaming this, so you need to believe it.
Right.
That makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
And anybody listening to this, anybody out there, regardless of your education, regardless of what you know and don't know, you should be able to agree that your opinion should be formulated out of conversations and out of reality and truth, not out of emotions and screaming and yelling.
Yep.
Couldn't be able to just talk about it.
Yeah. And I hope that we're doing a good job with that as we move on. I mean, we can be evaluated. I ran into Tim Scott yesterday. So buddy of mine, my son actually earned his black belt through Tim in Taekwondo. Amazing guy, public speaker, professional speaker on some level. I run into him in Sam's Club, and I come around the corner. He said, "Tell me about the podcast." We start chatting. He said, "Hey, just so you know, get ready for the haters. Just get ready." He goes, "Because I know you," and he goes, "And you're very easy to, is same as you're very easy to talk to because you'll be objective about things. Like, you're not just going to browbeat somebody, but when you get impassioned about something that you know is evil and you start talking about it, the ones that believe in that stuff or want the easy way out," was the way he said it, "are the ones that are going to attack." And so I appreciated that, because he's got a pretty good following. He's got a good substantive value, and he's somewhat of like mind of things that you and I look at and go after. But it was interesting because he had no sooner said it, and I check out of Sam's Club. I go out into the parking lot. I load up the Jeep. I'm throwing the supplies in for the business, and I popped open my phone to respond to something to my wife, and I had left Facebook open on the app, and it popped up, and it had a picture of my daughter's ship on a post that I had put out, and proud dad moment. She's saying, this was like a month ago, and somebody had commented on there, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I took it off because people were just going to get fired up when they saw it. This person got on and said, "Hey, essentially, you don't know me. I follow the things you say. Some of the things I've agreed with." He goes, "But I just want you to know that I hope your daughter burns in hell. The military goes down, and I hope she suffers an eternal flame for the rest of her life for signing up to go over and kill the people in the Middle East." That was the comment. Now, as a dad, I go, man, I want to go search this person out. I want to find them, and I want to literally grab a hold of them and go, "That's my little girl you're talking about." But then I thought about it for a minute, and I rested on it. I sat there in some degree of peace, and I went to the point that you just made, that there's people that just do stuff like that for the sake of doing it. So I didn't respond. I deleted it. But it astonishes me that, and I'm paraphrasing. There was more to it. This was like a 2-paragraph deal. Somebody put some serious thought into this thing, and almost to the point if it had been local in comment, it would have been one of those things almost like restraining order kind of stuff. I mean, it was pretty bad. This is the world we're up against right now. And I'm not saying by any measure everybody's like that. I do believe the vast majority of people have really, really good hearts, good souls, good intent behind it. But right now, the 1%, 2% is getting a lot of traction in this country and around the world. And it's going to continue that way for a while. I was going somewhere with, the point behind this is you have people, you said it a second ago, that they're cowards. They hide online and they're on the internet and they're safe, right? Like, who's going to walk up to somebody and say that in public? You'd have to be pretty dumb or pretty brave or pretty confident in your skills to walk up and say something that atrocious to somebody. But you can do it online all day long, and we can hide behind this. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I believe in episode 2, we were talking about the softness of men and courage, and why we're so wayward right now, because we just have people, masculinity's gone out the window, keyboard warriors, all this stuff. What we're doing right now, and this isn't a pat on the back, this is a fact. You walked a journey. You said a minute ago you've been through some stuff, Michael. So have you. You've been through some stuff. If I shared your story, let's just say over the last 3 years of what you've been through as a man, as a husband, as a business owner, financially, civilly, the average dude has not walked that journey. And that's your story to tell. It's not my story to tell, but it's a pretty powerful story of not only staying in the fight, not allowing yourself to get burdened and beat down with what people could have opinion-wise. You create not only a success story here, but you have a tremendous following in a world-class facility that you built right here in Castle Rock. Your wife has an amazing following between now 2 different coffee shops that she's opened up because of the message. It's not just the coffee, it's the message, right? It's the relational component. And we're always going to have business struggles. You and I have talked about them. We'll talk about, increasing numbers and the different things and what it looks like. But at the end of the day, when you're laying it on the line, you're doing it because you believe in what you're doing. You're doing it the right way. You're doing it with humility and integrity. And I think it's important that people know that about you. I think it's important that people know that about the Rock Jiu-Jitsu team being the key word. You are building something, even in our tiny little community, that has yet to fully evolve. I can't wait to see where this thing goes over the next really 6 to 12 months. We got some pretty major events that we talked about even just this morning that are coming up, some things that we're going to put on the calendar that we're going to be able to announce on a future podcast, things that we're diving into right now that I believe, quite frankly, are going to impact people's lives. And I'll go back to this and then I'll shut up and turn it over to you. Jesus was followed by 12, and changed the world forevermore. Somebody came to me the other day and they said, how many followers do you want? I'm not even sure I like that term because I think people follow Jesus because he's Jesus. Now we're following people because they're popular or they're liking something or subscribing to something. But they said, how many people would you like to have doing it? I said, I think 1 million. 1 million to me is like that's my number. Why? Because then I know there's some degree of not only influence, but at least truth that is battling the evil that is getting out there. Because if I've got 500 people and you and I are talking and we're impacting 500, we never know what that 500 is going to be able to go do for sure. But if we have legitimate numbers that are attached to this show after a period of time and we've got some degree of success from the things that we're doing, then we know from a measurable perspective that we've done something, hopefully, that is doing good for society that battles this keyboard crap. So I don't have to open up Facebook and see some guy wishing death upon my daughter because he has the ability to do so from 1,000 miles away and feel safe about that. I want guys that go, that's not true, and I've got your back, and I'm in your circle, and you're in my circle, and we're going to carry our cross up that hill, and we're going to walk for each other, and we're going to defend each other, but we're going to do it the right way with humility and integrity and love and compassion. And if we got to stand in the face of evil, then bring it on. Then bring it on. Because I'm afraid of no man. None whatsoever. There's not a guy on this planet that intimidates me. I intimidate myself out of fear. The biggest thing that I fight against is my own fear of failure. But I'm not afraid of anybody. And I'm not afraid of them because I'm stout or proud or ego or tough. I've had my share of beatdowns. I mean, I'm just, from an integrity standpoint, I know where I stand and I know what I believe in and I know who's got my back and I know who's got my life and my eternity. And that's why I'm not afraid of anybody, because I know where my salvation goes. I don't need to go look for a fight. The fight's already won. It's just how we deal with it in the meantime.
Yeah. Very good. Very good points. And to continue to set the tone on this podcast, I want to speak really quick to the person who made that malicious comment. Jesus loves you. If you're listening here,
yeah,
Jesus loves you.
Yeah, that was my attitude yesterday too when I didn't respond, but I thought the same thing.
Jesus loves you.
I'll forgive him.
And it sounds like you need Jesus.
Yeah.
Turn to Jesus because he's going to have the answer for you. Not getting online, commenting some kind of hate toward. It's crazy because it's so two-sided. People against hate speech, but then they're the ones who usually are putting out the most hate speech.
Yeah.
And that's the attitude that I know of you and I know I have toward everybody. I don't have any ill will toward anyone. And I think that you and your way of saying you don't fear anyone, I'll piggyback off that and saying I also don't hate anyone. I don't fear anyone, but I also don't hate anyone. I fear God.
Sure.
And I love God, and I know God loves me, and I have a responsibility to love those around me, whether they love me or not. And I love you. If you're listening, you got love from this podcast, whether I know you or not. Jesus loves you, and I love Jesus. So if Jesus loves you, then my love comes with it, whether you like it or not. But if you otherwise show your face and you want to manifest evil in your flesh and you come after my buddy Micah here or any of his family, then he's got backup. I will tell you that much.
I got a pretty good team,
attitude.
actually.
That's the attitude you got to have.
Yeah.
Is that's what we talked about before? Is de-escalation. We're not looking for a fight, but if it shows up at the door, we're ready.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Jesus loves everybody,
dude.
and
I watched.
He's for everybody.
You hit on something that I watched a video the other day where a dude walked in off the street and challenged Jits owner. And the guy says, don't ever walk into a gym and do this. It's not cool. But here's what I loved about it. He told the guy what he was going to do to him. He did it to him. He came back and said, I'm going to do it to you again just to prove it wasn't a fluke. And this guy was pretty beefed up. The guy that came in off the street he looked not roided, but he looked like he could handle himself in a street fight. And he did it to him again. And then when he stood up, he said, you know what I want you to do? I'm going to give you a month free in my gym. Because I want to work on not only your attitude, I want to work on your ability.
That's awesome.
And I want you to see what this is really all about. And it was awesome, right? Like that should be the attitude we all have. He had a right to defend himself. He had a right to defend his gym. But he did it in such a way that the guy had some respect. Now, I will say this. The guy ended up walking out with a case of the butt, didn't want to do it. His ego got the better of him. And the gym owner went, well, what else can I do? Because there is nothing else you can do at that point in time. You can pray for the guy, hope for the guy. But I interjected only to say, I think that attitude is your attitude. Nobody's ever in here to challenge you that I'm aware of. But the point is, if somebody walked in here and they had a case of the butt, you're going to love them through it. You're going to walk that journey with it unless they were here to hurt somebody. And at the end of the day, then you can step up and you can take care of it. That's part of what jiu-jitsu is all about, is the ability to defend yourself. But I loved watching that video and the approach, because the attitude is exactly what I've received from jiu-jitsu since I've gotten into it. Everybody is here to help everybody. Nobody's here to show how tough they are. And I'm not saying there's not guys out there, but I've just not experienced it here at The Rock in any way, shape, or form from anybody that I've rolled with. And you got some world champions here, like some legit dudes here.
We do have an awesome team. I can't deny that. I'm very thankful for each of them. But man, your story and your analogy there with that video and that challenge, what an awesome way to tie everything we've talked about together. That's our attitude. Anybody listening, that is our attitude. No hate, no malice toward anybody. Jesus has loved us, and our heart, both of our hearts, mine and Micah's, is right now. There's a world that's hurting, and the answer is not more politics. The answer is not more laws. The answer is more Jesus. Yeah. The answer is opening up your Bible every day. What can you do? What can you do right now, today, to make tomorrow a little better? Well, learn a little bit more why you're on this planet. Yeah. And it really starts with opening up your Bible. Building a little bit of a relationship with God, with Jesus. That's what we're on this planet to do.
So what do you say to people that don't believe that? Just right there. What do you say to that?
I say,
because that's easy for you and me.
I say, what do you believe?
Okay.
Here's the thing. Whenever you walk this planet without believing anything, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the purpose?
Right.
You got to have a purpose. Purpose has to be what fills your life. Otherwise, you'll have no fulfillment, and you'll have really no morality. You can argue that morality is just instinctual, or morality is just something that's it's embedded in us as humanity, but it's not. Morality comes from God, because God is sitting on the throne and he's all powerful, and he has the capability to wipe us all out if he wanted to, but he doesn't. Why? Because he loves us, and there's morality in there. And you can look back in the Bible and see whenever the mankind was approaching a state that we're probably pretty quickly approaching right now, if not potentially a little worse, that God handled it with the flood, because the world had gotten so far out of hand that we needed a reset.
Yeah.
And thankfully, God was gracious enough not to just wipe us out completely, but to give us another chance. And that's what the Bible is, if you read it, is chance after chance after chance. You can't tell me that there's not every single person on this world who knows what a second chance is and knows what that feels like. If you don't know what that feels like, then here's your opportunity and your invitation to discover what that feels like, because there's nothing like a second chance, or there's nothing like, some people listening, and you and myself included, more than a second chance, another chance even after that.
Yeah.
And that's what the Bible is filled with, is showing this redemption story of how God loves his creation, us as humanity, so much to give us chance after chance after chance. And not only chance, but this way, this blueprint from the beginning, to where Jesus came his self to this world to be that redemption for all of mankind. And we can sit and we can talk about the entire Bible, and we can talk about the plan for salvation. But right now, that should hopefully be enough to at least get somebody's attention. Hopefully.
Yeah.
You have to have a purpose. Without a purpose, you're wandering aimlessly. And for me, for you, and to a certain extent, this country, America, our purpose historically has been one nation under God. That has been our purpose. And that continues to be my purpose. And I want to make sure I'm doing absolutely everything that I can to carry out that purpose the best that I can. And everything that I do every day, running the gym, being a husband, every single role that I have in my life, I want to be doing it, denying myself and carrying my cross, because I want that to be my choice. It's not because it's forced on me. It's not because I've got a gun to my head. It's not because I have no other option, but it's because it's what I'm choosing. I'm choosing to die to myself and to live my life with a purpose that is greater than anything else that I could ever want or desire on this earth. All the riches, all the cars, all the fame, doesn't matter. What matters is Jesus has changed my life multiple times. He's entered my life multiple times. He has opened doors for me. He has made a way for me, for my family. He has provided, and he has showed up in undeniable ways. But if I wasn't walking this earth and open to actually looking at it in that perspective, I may have never otherwise even noticed. How many people listening, how many people out there, maybe you just haven't really stopped and taken a look and noticed, wow, this isn't coincidence. It's not coincidence that I'm here right now. There's got to be a reason. There's got to be a reason. So if you don't believe, start trying to work toward figuring out what you do believe, because you have to believe in something to have purpose in this life.
I think you said that very well. And so I've had people ask me that, and I'm not going to go down my road right now, but I've had a bad church life story, and I shared briefly in a previous podcast. And people are like, well, I don't like, how do you even believe in God? Like, after all that? Well, I mean, if I summarize it in a simple way, this is what I usually throw out to most people. I'd rather believe and be wrong for a life on earth than not believe and be wrong for eternity. I mean, if I'm just going from an overstatement of man, I want to live forever with the Creator versus 60, 70 years here. Plus, what do we have here? I would rather much look forward to the amazement and the good than the crap we're waking up to every single day. But when people ask me that question, I don't know. I don't feel like I have to soul search. And maybe I'm fortunate. Maybe I was lucky. Somewhere down the road, maybe somebody hit me with a 2x4 up against the head hard enough to wake me up. But I would like to think, when I look back, that the experiences that I had, both good and bad, and I said it to you the other day, and I'll say it one more time. I've had less than 10 people in my entire life that have categorically, fundamentally, unequivocally, with intent and malice, hurt me and wronged me in such a way that the average person probably would have gone after them physically or even worse. Which means I've had thousands of people in my life that have done nothing but leave amazingly good impressions and good friendships, and it just career on and on and on. So I can focus on the 8 or 9 that really, like, you could focus on a couple people, right? There's a couple people that really, really, really took advantage of you to the point where you said the other day, sometimes I don't even know if I can trust somebody. Like, that's a powerful statement. But then when you stop and you reflect on it, it's like, well, of course you can trust people. When you focus on those 2 or 3, that's bad juju. And again, for people, this is Jared's story to tell, but man, when you get screwed over badly, it hurts. And when it happens again, it hurts. And when it happens again, it hurts. If I just focus on one pastor in my life and one guy only, and I just go to anger, or I go to frustration for what he did to my family, what he did to the church, the lies, the manipulation, everything he did, it'd be very easy for me to go over and drag him out of his house and just beat the ever-living crap out of this guy, just out of emotion and frustration. And there's many people that say, oh, he deserves it. And I've had people tell me that. I've had people go, dude, I cannot believe. And I'm like, yeah, don't fill in the blank on the next statement, because no, I'm not going there. That's what forgiveness is about. But I don't ever have to trust the guy again. He has zero accountability, so he gets zero trust from me. Now, can I let that go and hand it over to God? Yep, I can. He malices me again, then we'll deal with what we got to deal with. But I think it's really, really important for people to understand God's grace is way bigger than your and my grace. Way bigger.
Yep.
I'm not at times a very gracious person I espouse to be. But the truth of the matter is there's times that I can be cut off in traffic and be frustrated. Now, I'll never go hunt the person down, and I won't get up with them and match up speed for speed and end up in anything. But I'm a human being. I get irritated. I have moments of times where I'm just like, are you kidding me? But man, the good times, far greater, far better. You said it. I think it was in our first or second episode. We went ATVing, and you and I mean, we had a brides, right? So you have your side to side. I bring my two ATVs. We go out. We're on the trail, but there was a portion of time where you got out of the side by side with Sarah and you jumped over on one of our ATVs. We put the girls together, and your wife's like, "I'm an independent woman. You watch this." And she takes off, right? And she's in her high horsepower side by side with my bride. Boom! She takes off. And what did you and I do? What did we do? We let them go ahead for a little bit, and then we're like, yeah, okay, sugar britches, watch this. And then boom, there goes Jared and I. And we're off it. We're on these back trails, 50, 60 mile an hour, jumping, just airborne, having a great time, doing what guys like to do. And we just cut loose for 10 minutes. 10 minutes of just unbridled, full throttle. Let's just get after it. There's people in life that have never experienced that. They have no idea what it's like to get on a 1,000cc Can-Am and ride 65 miles an hour going airborne for 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet, whatever it may be, jump to jump and just drifting trails and just having a great time, right? That moment was exhilarating. And I've done those moments hundreds and maybe thousands of times in my life. I've raced my whole life. So easily thousands of times. But the point is that 10 minutes between you and I, we'd never had that before. And that was an amazingly cool experience in God's creation on a backcountry trail in the middle of nowhere. And we got up to the end of the trail, and you and I stopped. And, 3 minutes later, the girls finally show up, and we have our chuckle and poke a little fun at them like, hey, where you been? Hot shot. But in that moment, it was freeing. It was just freeing. And there was no politics, and there was no house bills, and it was just two dudes on horsepower having fun. And what did we do later? We loaded up, and we go down, and we eat dinner at a place I've never been to, which was awesome, by the way.
Gonna make me hungry, man.
Dude, I want to go back down to that place right away.
Rudy's Barbecue.
So good, dude. So good.
One of the better places in Colorado.
For sure. But what did we do as a family?
Broke bread.
Prayed, broke bread, laughed, familyed up, talked about our experience, talked about our future, talked about where things are going. You know how many people need that? Like those two moments right there, separated by a little bit of time during the day, but those two moments right there made my whole week. I mean, it just made the whole week complete. And I wish people knew that. I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am to create a men's group where we have nothing but horsepower, and we go out and we go do exactly what we did, and then we stop and we sit for an hour, maybe two, and we share and we tell stories, and we get guys to open up on their scars and their triumphs, and we put it all out on the table, and we get an annual deal and we get a monthly deal where we're just jamming something like that to where there's a bond, because men need that right now. I think men in this country need that in the worst way. Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah, those are certainly good times. And I think that the majority of men out there, that probably sounds like a pretty good time. I got to hope that the majority of men out there, that sounds like a good time. But maybe don't start on 1,000cc if it's your first time. Maybe don't start with those airborne experiences. You can build your way up to that.
Come on.
You can build your way up to sending it a little bit. But, it can be a whole lot more than that. I think that for a lot of guys, I can't tell you how many people have come just to jiu-jitsu, and exactly what you just described. Jiu-jitsu for them is the first time that they've experienced a community like that. And so that weighs heavy on me for the Rock Jiu-Jitsu team, because I want it to be that they don't just get jiu-jitsu. Yeah. This is a community of like-minded individuals who are here to do everything we can to serve each other, make our lives as best they can be.
Sure.
Iron sharpens iron.
Amen.
And
that's my next tattoo, by the way.
Iron sharpens iron?
No, honestly, for 15 years, I've wanted to do something with that. And I reached out to Marco, who's done my stuff, and I'm like, hey, next week when you're in town. So it's coming. It's been 15 years in the making, because I've not had, here's the crazy thing, I've not had this this type of relationship in from a business relationship and a core friendship and partnership and podcast, all the stuff that I've never had that before. I've had multiple dude relationships. That sounded weird. I've had multiple relationships.
Let's clarify that.
Yeah,
I've
had multiple relationships as a man who does battle with another man, who's gone to war with another man, who's done entries with in warrants and car chases. I've had hockey player, just friendships that just span decades. So yeah, not dude on dude. That was weird.
You're making it weird. We got to just get past it.
Sorry.
Don't bring it up anymore.
I'm sorry. But what I was trying to say was the reason 2717 is because this is the first time for me that iron sharpens iron has been applicable across the board in so many ways. So yeah, get past the awkwardness. It's okay to be dumb every once in a while.
I'm just messing with
Slipped
you.
up. But it really is important to me, and it's something that is a statement that you and I have made multiple times on here, and I think it's kind of our mantra at this point.
Got to get a flag, put it on the wall in here somewhere.
Right there.
Yeah,
Right
great
there.
idea.
Yeah.
Great idea. It's so applicable to everything we're talking about. It's so applicable to everything we do in our training. It's not just jiu-jitsu, it's tactics, it's everything. And then it's beyond that. It's even off the mat, the community that we have off the mat, and you and me talking about events coming up. That is exactly what it is. It's iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And listeners, I encourage you, if you haven't already found that, find that. Some of the best places to find that will be church, could be jiu-jitsu, could be a coffee shop, but being open to a conversation and not in so much of a rush that you ignore somebody who comes up to you and says, "Hey, what's up? That's a nice t-shirt." Because that's exactly how I met Micah. Walked up to him, saw he had a martial arts t-shirt on and said, "Dude, that's a cool t-shirt. You train?" Yeah. And here we sit today because of that. So it's out there. Community is so important. We need it. And honestly, I believe that there is, whether people even realize it or know it or not, there's definitely a craving for it because we have been starved of it with technology that is available today.
And you know what the flip side of it is? It's interesting because you just said 2717, iron sharpens iron, is one man sharpens another. The flip side of that is you can dull another guy too. I was thinking about that last night because when I was up walking around, I was like 2717. I was kind of drawing some things on a tattoo design, and that hit me last night at 4 a.m. That's part of our problem right now in society. Is when you surround the show me your friend show, I'll show you your future. You can bring up bad stuff that injects bad into other people, and they thrive off of that equally as well because it's easier to do. Iron sharpening iron is work. That's not an easy thing to do.
No doubt. But
when you're sitting there just banging on all the bad, the guy that sends the text or the Facebook post about my daughter, like that's easy to do. And I tend to think society doesn't. We miss that sometimes. It's like, oh, they're of like mind. Yeah, but on what? Because this stuff that we're doing, and I don't want this to sound the wrong way or condescending, but this requires effort. There's a lot of a time investment and energy that goes into this. But there's a brotherhood that happens here. But there's also a brotherhood that happens out there. And that brotherhood can be not good and not healthy. Yeah. And it's way easier. I saw something the other day that said, I said I would love to have 1 million people following this podcast. I would like to have 1 million people that hopefully we're impacting, that are changing, seeing things, opening their minds, whatnot. But just because you have a big circle doesn't necessarily mean you have a good circle. And that, to me, it was an important statement to read because you got to keep it in. Again, we said humility, but you got to keep it objective at the exact same time. We want this to go somewhere so it gets a voice, but we want it to go to the right sources and have the right people doing the right things with it. Because there's people out there that have millions of followers that are not doing anything good with it, and it's very dangerous.
Good point. And to that exact point, the Bible doesn't contradict itself. You're exactly right. Iron sharpens iron takes work, and it also takes intent, takes precision. When you're sharpening something, you're having to focus on getting a fine edge on there. And there's another proverb, Proverb 13:20, that says, "A wise man keeps the company of other wise men."
Yeah.
And those who keep the company of the foolish will be destroyed.
Yeah, folly.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's biblical. You got to make sure that you're surrounding yourself. Whenever you get that community, you have to have a community that is encouraging you to be the best version that you can be of yourself.
Right.
You got to be in an environment that's challenging you, that's giving you challenge toward working toward your purpose.
Yep. Well stated.
And That's what we're doing.
I hope.
That's what I hope we're doing.
I sure feels like it, but man, I said it earlier in the podcast. I want to make sure we're humble and we're in our lane, and whatever our opinions are, it's done through either history or something trying to be objective on it. And hey, and if we screw something up, we'll look into the camera and go, hey, we messed it up, or we didn't know. We didn't know what we didn't know. We thought this. But I think that's important. I think humility is ownership and humility and accountability, especially accountability for me. That is one thing that I would love to have a conversation on one day, is just straight up accountability. And I know we skirt it and we talk about it a little bit, and we talk about with house laws and all that, but I'm talking legitimate, you own it accountability. Man, that is a lost art in society right now. It is so easy to pass the buck on everything right now.
No doubt. In fact, it's almost encouraged or kind of built in. It's like, well, blame somebody else. Don't take it up on yourself to change anything. Somebody else's fault. It's history's fault in a lot of instances. It's just a product of a broken system. Well, what are we doing to fix it?
Yep.
Who is it really on? That's obviously in a bigger level. We can talk about accountability on a more individual level.
Oh,
Maybe
for sure.
we'll just let that be the theme of one of the episodes in the future, because there's definitely a lot to unpack there. But for those of you who are listening, maybe this is the first episode you've tuned into. You probably have heard a little bit of background noise. We've got a self-defense class going behind us. We've got some kids here for summer camp. You can hear them laughing in the background. They're having a good time. And at the end of all of these episodes, we want to make sure that we are signing off and honoring God. Mm-hmm. And this is what I've always kind of, just to kind of close us out with this thought, this is what I've kind of always tried to liken, whether it's a good analogy or not, I don't know. But in jiu-jitsu, there's this understanding, like, you're probably not going to get very good at jiu-jitsu until you actually finally roll, is what we call it. You actually go live. And I would put it this way. You can patent a baseball bat. You can patent a baseball. You can patent the entire field. You can put the entire rule set, how the game is played. But until people start picking up a bat and swinging it at a baseball, nobody's actually playing baseball. Nobody's actually improving and getting better at baseball. Well, we can talk about God. We can read the Bible. We can learn about God, but there's something very much more important than a lot of that. You got to learn. You got to read about God. You got to read his word. You got to talk about him, but you also have to talk to God. And so all of this means very little if we're not doing what we have decided to do at the end of each of our episodes, and that is what we can do about a lot of what's going wrong in our world right now as well. We can talk to God about it, because at the end of every episode and at the end of every day, he's still the creator. He still sits on the throne, and he hears our prayers. And I believe he's going to hear this prayer as we sign off on this episode today.
And how many should be gathered? 2 or more.
2 or more are gathered in my name. I'm there in their midst.
There you go.
I'm paraphrasing. That's the Jared Heyman version.
I like it. It worked. I think you got the point across.
Good. Okay. Well, we'll sign off here. Lord, thank you again for an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation. I pray, Lord, that you would let everything that's been discussed in this episode be delivered in a way that you would intend it to. Anybody who's listening, God, I pray that you'd let them feel your peace, your love, your presence. It's all about you, Jesus. And at the end of all these episodes, as we're praying, I pray that you'd help it to be understood. I'm not perfect. Mike is not perfect. We would never want to give any type of a projection or any type of a indication that we see ourselves as that, because we know we're not. But God, you are perfect. No doubt you have loved us. You've loved your creation, even whenever we have been wayward, even whenever we have walked away from you. And even worse than that, you've continued to love us. And we thank you for your love today. We ask you, Lord, that you let everyone listening and that you let us find encouragement in your love, that you let us find hope in your love and in your word and in your promise, Lord, for everlasting life, for those who turn to you and follow your plan. Lord, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the redemption that is in you and in your name, Christ Jesus. We praise you, and we thank you, Lord, for everything that you have continued to bless our lives with, that you have continued to provide for us, Lord. We know that it's not always going to be easy, and it's not always going to be easy to just even stand up and believe in what we believe. But it's not supposed to be easy, Lord. We know that your followers, they were put to death in gruesome ways, Lord. And if that's what we have to do, then we pray that you'd give us the attitude that's necessary to stand up and be the men that you've called us to be. We thank you for the freedoms that we have in this country, in this world today, that we don't have to, right now at this moment, be worried about literally be put to death. But I know that you see there is people, there is agendas and voices out there that are trying to suppress, trying very hard to suppress truth, trying to make people have fear, to even speak up and to speak to you. God, I pray against that fear right now. I pray that you let there be men and women in this country and in this community here, right here in Castle Rock, that stand up for truth, that boldly approach your throne, and that have no shame and no fear to come to you, to speak to you, Lord. And I thank you for hearing each and one of our prayers. I pray, Lord, that you would go with us as we leave this podcast, and I pray that you would bless all the episodes that are to come, Lord. Use this all for your glory. It's not for us, it's all for you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Another one done.